something that usually still gets to legislators today. Sit down and write it. It'll get to them. And say how upset you are about what's going on. Demand the Fed gets audited. Support bills like HR 1207. HR 1207 was the one that audited the Fed last year, got voted down, but they'll introduce it again. We'll see a different version of it coming out soon. Tell your legislator to vote for it. And most importantly, tell every single legislator that your mission is now to vote them out if they do not support ending this tyranny. If they're not willing to break your bonds of slavery, then you will make it your job to break their bond of employment. That's all I have. So I don't know if you Q&A later.
Yeah, we'll have a Q&A session after Jake is done speaking. All right, Joe, thank you. Hey, pull up my presentation here again. Thanks again, Joe. Really appreciate that. I was wondering while I was sitting over there if maybe Sarah Palin is an angry German. Could be.
She can see Germany from her backyard.
From her helicopter. All right, our next speaker tonight is independent candidate Jake Towne. He recently ran in the Pennsylvania 15th Congressional District race against Republican Charles Dent and Democrat John Callahan. Mr. Dent is a member of the House Homeland Security Committee and supports the Patriot Act, one of the greatest assaults upon liberty and privacy in the history of our nation. Mr. Callahan supports the United States policy of sending massive amounts of foreign aid to Israel while our own country is in complete economic peril. Jake, on the other hand, supports true liberty in America by opposing bailouts, corporatism, unconstitutional wars that endanger the lives of our brave young men and women in the military, and the federal income tax. Jake is a strong opponent of the Federal Reserve and believes that it is the wrong thing to do to look to the government to fix the problems which government created in the first place. Out of the 19 congressional districts in Pennsylvania, Jake was one of only 5 third-party candidates. Jake received 7.5% of the vote in his district, almost twice as much as any of the other third-party candidates. In a time when breaking the two-party duopoly is essential, Jake has helped to bring attention and support to third parties that is much needed. Mr. Towne has studied at the Mises University, one of the most prominent institutions teaching classic liberal economic theory in the United States. As a freelance writer, Mr. Towne has written dozens of informative articles on economics, monetary policy, the Federal Reserve System, and more, including a 15-part series entitled Unlocking the Money Matrix. Jake is a chemical engineer who worked in the semiconductor industry for the past 7 years. With a full scholarship, Jake earned his bachelor's degree in chemical engineering with honors from Lehigh University. For the last 4 years, Jake worked for Able Stick Laboratories, leading the startup and commissioning of 2 manufacturing cells in Shanghai, China. He discovered the extreme nature of doing business in a country lacking individual freedoms and understands the destructive exploitation of American jobs through corporatist government policies. Jake has an adventurous spirit, having backpacked in Nepal and New Zealand, teaching English to tribal villagers on the rainforested Chinese-Burmese border, and running several marathons. Living abroad gave Jake an understanding of how hard life can really be without the liberties that we enjoy as Americans and often take for granted. He also enjoys interviewing zombies on the campaign trail. Give it up for Mr. Jake Towne.
One second while I figure out how to load
Oh,
this.
jeez.
Just hit the down button.
Yeah, I don't have to select switch. Sorry, guys.
Well, I'd like to, first of all, thank the organizers for having me, for Amanda, Dave, and Dawn. It's very nice to be here in Pittsburgh today. Also like to say thank you to all the activists that were on the streets today, protesting and handing out literature about the Federal Reserve and spreading the truth. And as Gandhi liked to say, you know, what we should be is be the change that you want to see in the world. And I think that it says something that we have people out there that are working to educate everyone else. The presentation I have today is to complement Joe's, and it goes into a little bit of detail on sound money and into the different iterations of monetary systems that we've had since the Federal Reserve began. And then I'll conclude by talking a little bit about the solutions to, you know, not just end the Fed, but also, you know, then what? How do you transition from what we have now to a sound money system? So let's first ask ourselves a question, very simple one. What is money? And usually when you ask people, you'll be like, well, you know, it's the stuff that we use to go and buy things. But that's not really the whole answer to that. What money is money is an invention of mankind. What it is it's a medium of exchange used, or a unit of account or store of value in order to purchase things or to save and what have you. And money evolved is also known as indirect exchange, which evolved from direct exchange. Another word for direct exchange is barter. So if you had, I think this example is if you had oranges and nails back in the day, if you wanted to trade your neighbor for whatever, that's what you would do. Now over time what happened is different goods would evolve and be used to buy multiple other goods. So for instance, if you go back to, say, for instance, the Roman Empire, sometimes they would use silver to purchase things, sometimes they would use gold to purchase things, and sometimes they would also use salt. Like the legionnaires in the Roman army were paid in salt, and we get the phrases today like, you know, worth your salt, and even the modern word salary is derived from that point in time. And salt back then was a commodity that was used, you know, either as seasoning for food, but people would also store it and use it as money. There's 4 types of money. The first type is commodity money, like what I just mentioned, whether it's like you had in World War II concentration camps, you had people that used cigarettes, for instance, as money. It's any type, commodity money is any good that is exchanged. And then the second type of money is receipt money. So if I write down on a sheet of paper that I owe someone 1 ounce of gold, and I really have that 1 ounce of gold somewhere, then that receipt, which may be in the form of paper, is really equivalent to that good, although it's not the actual physical form. The third type is fractional commodity money. And what fractional commodity money is, let's say, you know, I still have 1 ounce of gold, but instead of, let's say, having 1 receipt issued out for 1 ounce of gold, let's say I give people 100 receipts. And obviously that would be fraudulent, and in today's world, what the Federal Reserve is really doing is exactly that, fraudulent money. The fourth type of money is fiat money, which means literally by decree. So you decree that this money here, or this piece of linen, is worth something. And that's currently our entire monetary system. Doesn't matter if you live in Thailand or China or Russia, everyone uses paper money that's issued by these governments. Now what's important to realize is that if we just woke up today and let's say we were using other things as money, and the government decides all the time to create something called the dollar and issue it out to people, people would be very hesitant to accept it. So what happened over time is we gradually got to the point where we are today. Okay, there's requirements for sound money. First of all, money must be durable. What that would mean is, like, for instance, if you use something like food or butter as money, it would go rancid and wouldn't be very durable. Meanwhile, metallic coins are fairly durable, and even societies like Japan that would use rice as money, it could be saved for a certain period of time. Second, it must be portable. Like if you have a big hunk of iron to trade around as money, it's not very convenient to take it around with you. Third and fourth, it must be easily divisible, and it must be recognizable and uniform. So you could take something that's fairly valuable, whether it's gemstones or diamonds, and the thing is that wouldn't really meet the requirements for sound money, because why? And each diamond is different, and you wouldn't be able to divide it up. Like you can't take a divided diamond and slice it in half. Fifth, money must have a stable purchasing power. And as Amanda was talking about at the beginning, against like our dollar used to be pegged to gold, and this 1 ounce of gold back in the day was about $35. You could exchange 35 paper dollars and get an ounce of gold. These days, gold is trading between somewhere around $1,350 or $1,400 per each ounce of gold, and again, it's lost about 98% of its purchasing power. Next, money must be scarce. For instance, cigarettes that I mentioned that were used in concentration camps, as soon as the war ended, it didn't work anymore, because obviously you still had cigarette factories, and that could very quickly eliminate the scarcity factor. And seventh, sound money must be reproducible. You must have some way to create more of it. Right, and a little bit of a history lesson that Joe touched on for a little bit. Not only was our Revolutionary War fought mainly over not just sound money, but also the excessive taxation and the lack of political rights of our forefathers, but we fought for a reason. And when to pay our army for 7 years, when George Washington was in charge of our army, he did pretty much the same thing. We would print up money. These were called continentals, and they were used to pay off the soldiers. And these continentals were not backed